Hello and welcome. I'm James Ezimoha and you're watching A News. The fourth Shusha Global Media Forum is now underway in Azerbaijan. It brings together nearly 160 media leaders, journalists and policymakers from more than 50 countries to discuss one of the biggest challenges facing journalism today, which is how to restore trust in an age of disinformation, artificial intelligence and growing geopolitical tensions. Over the next 2 days, participants will explore the media's role in promoting peace, strengthening international cooperation, and protecting the integrity of information in the digital era. Now let's join the live coverage at the event.
Shusha is once again positioning itself as an international platform for dialogue on the future of media, while simultaneously showcasing the city's ongoing reconstruction and development. International delegates have begun arriving in Azerbaijan ahead of the fourth Shusha Global Media Forum. Foreign guests and officials were welcomed at Fizuli International Airport before traveling onward, where around 160 media representatives, experts, officials from the 54 countries are expected to take part.
I had a great honor to participate in previous forum, and what can I see that forum to forum it became more and more popular in media society. Here we have journalists, our colleagues from many countries, and it's very important because it's from one part it's interest to the forum, from other it's interest to Azerbaijan, and I think the discussion which will take place, our talks at the plenary sessions and around them is very important. But first of all, I have to say that tomorrow we'll expect the speech and answers to the questions of the President of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, which always very important and very interesting for all our participants.
I'm expecting from this actual venue and this event is an opportunity to speak, is an opportunity to be heard, and also to meet with other like-minded movements and journalists around the world that are working on very important issues that are in the global south, and Baku has become a hub for that activity.
The annual gathering provides a platform for discussions on the evolving global media landscape, bringing together journalists, policymakers and industry leaders to exchange perspectives, ideas on the challenges and opportunities facing the profession.
I believe that this is the most important delegation ever that Azerbaijan and Karabakh has seen, because each of them, they are representative of a huge, big media in their own countries, and many of them internationally also. So bringing them, showing the reality and explaining to them what Azerbaijan has done and what was this place is the most important thing that these days Azerbaijan need to do.
Later this evening, participants will tour the newly built Karabakh Street, where they will have an opportunity to see the city's ongoing transformation ahead of the official program. In the coming days, panel discussions, interviews and exchanges will focus on key issues affecting journalism worldwide, including technological change, information integrity and international media cooperation. Ayten Şükürova, İlknur Seydemirova, Elbrus Musayev, Cavid Aliyev, A News.
Now let's talk to Fuhad Karimli, political analyst, join us from Baku. Now this year's theme is the mission of media in promoting peace, restoring truth and rebuilding trust. Why has that become such a timely and important discussion in today's global information environment?
Thank you for having me. Well, I think one of the reasons why it's specifically so timing is that we see war and conflict proliferating all over the world. It's affecting everyone, not just in our region. You know, there's a conflict going on in Iran. There's the Ukraine and Russia conflict. So a lot of these things are deepening rather than getting a result. So I think we can look at specifically why it's timely in the sense of how media contributes to this, how it can prevent it, especially the proliferation of disinformation and misinformation as well as how does it fuel conflict. So we see biases all over the world. We see that it can actually cause crises and all of these kinds of things. So I think specifically looking at peace is a very important thing at this point in time because it's something that's really needed around the world.
Mm-hmm. Now, the agenda covers everything from artificial intelligence and media ethics to combating disinformation. Which of these issues do you expect to generate the most meaningful debate over the next 2 days?
When we look at specifically disinformation, it's something that's been, if we can say, a hot topic for the past few years. We see specifically media moving on to social media. So we see more and more people gaining access to news through the use of social media platforms. And although this is a really good thing, it means that people are, more involved in what's going on in the world. It's also specifically, it has a hindrance that people can get wrong information from the wrong outlets. So whether it be misinformation, which carries the lack of intent, or disinformation, which is specifically with the intention of informing people, we see that social media carries that power. So with the proliferation of media outlets, non-credible media outlets, I think people will have a lot to say about this because there's also the argument that people are saying that this is our point of view and that's their point of view, this is what we want to progress, but facts are still facts. So it has to be unbiased and objective.
Mm-hmm. Now, the forum brings together participants from more than 50 countries. Beyond the discussions themselves, how important is this kind of international media dialogue at a time of growing geopolitical divisions?
So like I said, when we look at the scope of the forum, so first of all, I think it's been quite successful. For the past few years, it's been growing and growing, and the attention around it has also been increasing. And I think one of the main factors for the interest is the scope and the different nationalities that are being represented. So the different number of countries, media outlets from different number of countries, so 50 is quite a large number. Specifically when you consider the region of the South Caucasus, which historically hasn't had such an international outreach. We see that Azerbaijan is pioneering that path, and specifically the Shusha Global Media Forum, we're trying to show an objective and multifaceted view of things. So all of these people from all over the world, media outlets, professionals, journalists, they have a platform to speak their mind. They have a platform to reach the world, and they do it through Shusha.
Mm-hmm. Now, organizers say the forum aims to produce practical cooperation rather than simply exchange of ideas. What concrete outcomes or initiatives would you like to see emerge from this year's event?
From my point of view, I think I would like to see a lot of media outlets from specifically the Global South gain more traction. So we see in the past, not just in the past few years, in a long time, the Global South has often been neglected, and I think media is also one part of it. So we saw in the World Urban Forum that was held in Baku that a lot of people from South came to Baku as well.
All right, thank you, Fuad. Now, we will try to join the live coverage as the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, gives his opening speech.
Countries, including representatives from 30 news agencies, over 60 media agencies, and 10 international organizations. And over the past 4 years, the forum has brought together nearly 600 media representatives from 81 countries. Some very impressive figures there. Mr. President, how does it feel to have the forum now in its 4th year?
Well, first of all, it's a big honor to host such a distinguished audience here again in Azerbaijan and Karabakh in Shusha. The idea of the forum was to create an atmosphere for media representatives from different parts of the world to address the issues of interest, mutual concern, and also to get acquainted with Karabakh, with Shusha. And by the time passing, I'm sure many of our guests visiting us regularly, they see the development of Karabakh, they see the reconstruction. The first time probably when they came, they saw only ruins, but now they see cities, they see people who live in the new apartments, in the new houses. So it's a combination of various factors. First, every time, every year, the topic of the forum is reflects the current challenges. Second, the atmosphere is very friendly, very positive, and many people from different media outlets, I'm sure, become good friends after meetings in Shusha. And of course, important factor for us is to gather this big group of people, those who influence the decision-making process, those who influence public opinion in their countries and beyond, to see that when Karabakh is back to its roots, when the owners of these lands are back, then the real development happens.
Well, thank you so much. I think that deserves a round of applause. And very impressive to see how the forum has very much evolved over the last 4 years, so thank you so much. Well, just to set the scene a little bit for you, we gather at a time, of course, where information travels faster than ever, yet trust is increasingly difficult to earn. Journalists and policymakers today are very much navigating an era shaped by misinformation, by division, by AI, and rapidly evolving digital platforms, which is why conversations and forums like this are ever so important, of course, and also which is why this year's theme is the mission of the media in promoting peace, restoring the truth, and rebuilding trust. As a very quick introduction, my name is Laura Buckwell, and I am a broadcast journalist for Euronews. So thank you so much for having me. Well, as you can all imagine, we have a very full agenda over the next couple of days. And yes, we're going to be starting with this open dialogue with the President. And for the next couple of hours, we are going to be opening up the floor to you all for any questions that you might have. I have a long list of people and names that I'm going to be throwing out to, and we have a very generous amount of time to get those answered. So when I call your name, however, please do make sure you keep your questions brief and to the point, as we do have quite a lot to get through today. So additionally, if there's anything that you would like to share on your social media platforms, you can use our hashtag, which is Shusha Global Media Forum and GMF 2026. So we're going to be starting off with our first media representative. I'm delighted to now throw out to Mr. Ken Moriyasu, who is the Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute. There he is. Hopefully we have a microphone at the ready.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Ken Moriyasu from Hudson. Azerbaijan occupies a unique geographic position linking Central Asia, the South Caucasus, Turkey, and Europe. But recent disruptions in the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz have reminded the world of the vulnerabilities of maritime trade. Do you believe we are entering an era in which overland corridors will become as strategically important as sea lanes? And if so, how do you see Azerbaijan's role evolving over the next decade? Thank you very much.
You know, we've been working on connectivity issues for quite a while, for maybe actively more than 10 years, trying to use advantages of our geographical location into the real platform for multinational cooperation. And there were various factors which could allow us or not, or prevent us from becoming one of the international transportation destinations. First was the physical infrastructure, which was missing, and we had to build it, what has been done. Second, interaction with the neighbors, because without that, you will never become a transit country. If you have bad relations with your neighbors, it means that nothing will come back and forth. And also to establish the broad international cooperation on the vast geography of Eurasia, to the east and to the west, to the north and to the south from Azerbaijan, and to lead the process, as we did, for instance, in implementing our energy projects, where Azerbaijan was the initiator, main financial contributor, and organizer of a multinational cooperation, which today also helps many countries to tackle the issues of energy security. So the same approach we apply to connectivity. And as I said, physical infrastructure is done. And now we are only working on the issues how to expand it, because we did not expect that our geography will be so needed in recent times. Interaction with neighbors to the east and to the west are excellent, whether it's the countries of Central Asia or our immediate neighbors like Georgia and Turkey and Europe. And to connect all that, of course, we needed to initiate many steps that could enable the corridor to be efficient. Yes, situation in the Middle East now makes this corridor more attractive. And if only you looked at the flight radar map, during the hot period of standoff, you would see that a very narrow corridor was going through Azerbaijan. And the same can be applied to the maritime transportation across the Caspian and land transportation. So all these factors definitely increase the importance of Azerbaijan. And fortunately, we've been ready to handle a growing number of cargo. Now we are expanding our facilities. Our trade seaport, though it is now the biggest in the Caspian with 15 million tons, will be upgraded up to 25 million tons. We are now building 10 vessels at our shipyard in order to be able to evacuate cargoes from Europe and to Europe. Our close relations with countries of Central Asia and the European Commission, and situated just in the center, in the middle of these two destinations, really creates a big advantage. And of course, the policy of Azerbaijan, which was always aimed at cooperation, at addressing the concerns of our neighbors, and also them to be ready to address our concerns. And atmosphere, what I was talking about, atmosphere here in Shusha at the Media Forum is the same what we are trying to create, and I hope we managed to create among many international actors.
Thanks so much. What a great question to start off our dialogue. Thank you so much once again to Mr. Ken Moriyasu. Thank you. We now move over to Mr. Yusuf Ozhan, who is the Vice President and Editor-in-Chief of Anadolu Agency. Yes, please do get a microphone over if we have one, just here in the second front row. There we go.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you so much for having us today here. I don't know if this is an English idiom, an authentic English idiom, but in Turkish we have being the two halves of an apple. So the nations of Turkey and Azerbaijan are the two halves of an apple. And what would be your message to the people of Turkey? Thank you so much.
Message only of friendship and brotherhood. Turkey and Azerbaijan, two countries. I think, to my mind, and I am sure that people in Turkey and Azerbaijan share this view, as the closest among all the countries of the world. If you look to the level of cooperation, political, economic, energy, connectivity, people to people, you will see that probably no other two countries in the world are so close to each other, are so supportive to each other, and friendly to each other than Turkey and Azerbaijan. And this is a big asset for our peoples, for our countries. Together we are much stronger. This is also an important factor of regional stability and cooperation, including what I was just elaborating on, connectivity. And this is an important factor of security, because here in Shusha, 5 years ago, President of Turkey and myself signed the Shusha Declaration, which actually elevated our relations to the level of alliance. So we are not only brothers and friends, we are allies. And if something unfortunate or bad happens to one of us, another will be with all its potential, including military, to defend our brothers. And this really is a very rare case when we see that ethnic roots, common culture, and common history creates a platform for countries to be so close politically. I'm sure you know many cases where the same, relatively same roots and same linguistic, vocabulary does not create the platform. On the contrary, people who sometimes speak almost the same language fight with each other. People who share the same religion kill each other. And therefore, the example of Turkey and Azerbaijan is one which should be examined and followed by neighbors. The neighbors should behave exactly as Turkey and Azerbaijan.
Thank you so much. A wonderful question again, and an impressive statement there from the President. Thank you so much. Moving on now, we have Mr. Christian Augustin Niculescu Tagalis, who is the senator, lawyer, member of the Parliamentary Friendship Group with Azerbaijan, Romania.
Excellency, I would like to confess that this is my third visit to Azerbaijan, and last year at the same time I had the privilege of climbing Heydar Peak, one of the highest and most beautiful mountain peaks of your wonderful country. I am impressed not only by Azerbaijan's natural beauty, but also by the remarkable progress your country is making in multiple areas, such as innovation, digital governance, and renewable energies. In recent years, Azerbaijan has gone through a remarkable process of developing, of strengthening its strategic position on a regional and international level. And the relationship of the European Union is an extremely pragmatic one, focusing on energy security, regional connectivity, and trade. By liberating its occupied territories, Azerbaijan has restored its territorial integrity with its internationally recognized borders, and this achievement, Mr. President, was based on your leadership in resolving this issue. You have also positioned Azerbaijan as one of the key regional actors, your country being a relevant member of the international stage. Throughout its active involvement, it contributes to cooperation, promoting dialogue, and building bridges between regions. At the same time, the relationship of the Azerbaijani Parliament with the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, of which I am a member, is one that requires a revival, given that, for various reasons, a deadlock has been reached, which unfortunately had the effect of withdrawing the Azerbaijani delegation from the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe for the time being. Expressing my belief that the difference between the two sides will be overcome and the Azerbaijani delegation will return to its place inside the Pache, I would like to ask you, Mr. President, how you see the improvement of this relationship, considering that it is mutually beneficial? In your opinion, what step could be taken towards closer cooperation with the European institution? Thanks, Mr. President.
First of all, thank you very much for your kind words about Azerbaijan, and thank you for your personal contribution to friendship between our countries. You mentioned several important moments in our relations with European institutions, including European Commission and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. And as you know, there is a big difference between relations with one and another. With European Commission, though we had not an easy times during the previous Commission, especially due to the destructive role of the former head of European diplomacy, Mr. Borrell, who actually almost ruined relations between European Commission and Azerbaijan. And now it's obvious why, because he was strongly engaged by some corrupt figures including former judge of International Court, Mr. Ocampo, who in his comments publicly acknowledged that Mr. Borrell was on his payroll. And the money for Mr. Ocampo was coming from a Russian-Armenian oligarch who is now under house arrest in Armenia. So it's a big chain of anti-Azerbaijani group which existed in the European Commission. But it's good that Mr. Borrell is now out of politics, hopefully forever. And with the new Commission, our relations started to improve, especially after we've seen that there is a big mutual demand for reset. And we supported that. I can just tell you that during several months of this year, we had several important visits from Brussels. On March, the President of European Council, Mr. Costa. On May, Head of European Diplomacy, Madam Callas. And July, President of European Commission, Madam Ursula von der Leyen. And in public comments of them and myself, everyone can see that both sides are satisfied with the level of cooperation, and the areas of partnership which you described, of course, are important, but not only. Our bilateral framework is much broader. With respect to Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, unfortunately, we see absolutely different picture. And I personally regret that, because I was the first head of Azerbaijani delegation when I was member of parliament in 2001. And for 2 years, I was working there. And as you know, there are 4 sessions throughout the year. So for me, it's not a pleasant situation that it happened. But the reason why it happened is very important in order to answer your question, what should be done in order to find a way from the deadlock. Until liberation of 100% of our territories from separatists and Armenian occupational forces in September 2023, Azerbaijan was never under any sanctions in PASE. September 2023, when we used our legitimate right for self-defense and liberated the territory from remainings of separatists, the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly decided to punish Azerbaijan. And in January 2024, they put under question the credentials of Azerbaijani delegation and also deprived Azerbaijani delegation from the voting right. So that was not because of so-called human rights issues. If it was about that, it would have been done probably much earlier. It was just punishment for us for what we've done in order to restore our sovereignty. And after that, the Azerbaijani delegation made a very wise decision. They stopped attending the meeting, because if we don't have a voting right, why should we there? And we, by the way, did not vote for the judges of European Court for Human Rights, and that's why Azerbaijan does not recognize the decisions of the court, because we don't know who these people are. We did not vote for that, and for more than 2 years, we are discriminated. And I can tell you openly that we in our government were seriously evaluating the complete departure from the institution, not only freezing our membership in PASE, but also leaving Council of Europe as a whole. But I was approached by Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Mr. Alain Berset, and I was asked not to do it. And in order to find a way how to improve the situation. So I put that on hold, but unfortunately since that time nothing is happening. There are some very strange and ultimative demands from PASE to Azerbaijan, which are absolutely unacceptable. It was not us who ruined relations, it was them. They deprived us from the voting right without any legitimate ground. So what should be done is that they should restore the voting rights of Azerbaijani delegation, and after that, Azerbaijani delegation will come back. It should be exactly, as I said, not vice versa. We didn't do anything wrong with them, therefore it was them who made that unjust move, and it should be them who should step back to find the courage and to admit that they made a big mistake. You know, on many occasions I expressed my view on that if Azerbaijan leaves the Council of Europe completely, no one in the country will even notice that. So being there or not being there doesn't change a lot here. To be there is better, probably, I don't know, maybe. But, and we are not looking for confrontation, especially when not only Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, but also European Parliament is attacking us regularly, again without any grounds. I think it's kind of an obsession about Azerbaijan. So in 5 years they adopted 13 resolutions attacking Azerbaijan, and none of them is, for us, is important, and none of them influences anything here. So of course it's better to have normal relations with these institutions rather than this confrontation. But again, it was not our choice. We joined the Council of Europe voluntarily in 2001. At that time, it was a different organization. And in general, Europe was different from that time. We were entering that Europe with those aspirations, with those hopes that membership there will help us to resolve our main issue, to resolve Karabakh conflict, to restore our sovereignty. So again, I think take too much time of the audience for this issue, but taking into account your comprehensive question, I'd like to inform you and the audience about what happened and what should be done. We are ready for normalization, but they should make the first step. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a detailed question and such a detailed answer as well. Thank you so much. Right, we move on now to Mr. Ramiz Yunus, who is a professor of political science at the Khazar University.
Yes.
Hopefully we are
But he represents the United States.
Okay, from the United States.
Yes,
There you go.
yes. He lived there for many years. Yeah.
Dear Mr. President, it's a great honor for me to meet you once again in the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. Thank you very much for your invitation to this important international event. I have two questions. My first question about relationship between Azerbaijan and the United States. Mr. President, the 907 amendment against Azerbaijan was adopted by the US Congress more than 30 years ago. What is your assessment of this amendment today? And do you see a realistic chance for its repeal under the current administration of President Trump? My second question, today Azerbaijan is widely recognized as middle power and the leader of the South Caucasus. In your view, Mr. President, what is the main difference between small state and middle power in today's world? Once again, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, on 907 amendment, first, You know it very well, but maybe not everybody knows that. That was a very unfair move from the United States Congress towards Azerbaijan back in 1992, when the Freedom Support Act was adopted in the US Congress in order to support the newly emerged countries after the collapse of the Soviet Union, to support them with financial assistance. And Amendment 907 was introduced by pro-Armenian senators. By the way, President Biden was one of them. He at that time was a senator. And probably this explains why we had so many difficulties with Biden's administration. So that amendment prevented Azerbaijan from access to America's financial assistance. The reason for that, as it was described, was that Azerbaijan is blockading Armenia. First of all, it was not true. We were not blockading Armenia. It was Armenia who occupied our territory, and the occupied territories just lie between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So if not for occupation, there would have been no so-called blockade. And second, it was, of course, very painful for us at that time because the country was very poor, and we were the only former Soviet Union republic which was discriminated by United States Congress. Today, this amendment is completely outdated. First, because Azerbaijan and Armenia initialed a peace agreement in the White House in the presence of President Trump. Second, Azerbaijan unilaterally lifted all the transit restrictions to Armenia. And now, since we did it, more than 40,000 tons of different cargo was transported to Armenia from Russia, from Kazakhstan, and from other destinations. Moreover, Azerbaijan itself started to supply oil products to Armenia, and it's already, as far as I remember, more than 10,000 tons, especially now when many countries are suffering from access to the source of fuel. Armenia has a reliable source as Azerbaijan. If not for that, probably today they would have been looking for gasoline and diesel all over the world. So this once again demonstrates that this amendment is completely outdated and should be repealed completely. But unfortunately, despite the firm position of President Trump, and by the way, during our meeting last August in Washington, in White House, President Trump signed a waiver in my presence of this amendment for 1 year. And it doesn't work now, but its symbolic meaning, its political meaning is still there. And I think the sooner this amendment is totally repealed by the Congress, the better for all of us. For Azerbaijan, because we will not be any longer discriminated, and for US Congress, which will demonstrate responsibility and will demonstrate the ability to admit the mistakes and also to act in accordance with the current geopolitical situation. So we hope that it will happen, but nevertheless, I can tell you that with today's administration, this Amendment 907 doesn't play any negative role. You asked about relations between the United States and Azerbaijan. I would say relations between Trump's administration and Azerbaijan are excellent. And we're very glad that really these relations elevated to a level of strategic partnership. And my historic meeting with President Trump last August in Washington, and then our meeting in Davos in January this year, invitation to Azerbaijan to be a founding member of the Board of Peace initiated by President Trump, visit of Vice President J.D. Vance, signing in Baku with Vice President a joint declaration on establishing of strategic partnership, and many other factors demonstrate that relations now at the peak level, unprecedented level, which we never had before. And today we are working actively to implement all the provisions of the Strategic Partnership Declaration, particularly those working groups which have been established are working very actively on trade and investments, on digital transformation and AI, on energy security and connectivity, on defense and defense sales. And the United States lifted all the embargoes on supply of weapons to Azerbaijan. And right after that, the same was done by United Kingdom and by members of the European Union. So this, I think, characterizes very well the spirit of our bilateral relations, the form, and also the potential for the future. With respect to your second question about middle power, yes, I read some analytic articles, and also I'm aware about some opinion of experts about Azerbaijan became a middle power. Though I think the gathering like this can also help to identify exactly what are the criteria for the country to be named middle power. There can be various criteria, and one single criteria has not yet been elaborated. But to my mind, this terminology means the recognition of the country's potential, its ability to defend its national interests, regardless what big powers think or do, ability to resist with all your potential when someone wants to hurt you, definitely defense capability, and not only defense capability which is demonstrated on the military parades, but on the battlefield. And of course, one of the important factors to my mind is ability to influence with your only word or with your only statement to events which are happening beyond your boundaries. And Azerbaijan demonstrated that on many occasions. And also I think one of the factors which can be applied to this terminology is responsibility. Responsibility for what is happening inside your country, and responsibility to a certain degree for the whole region. And I think, and probably the team will also add to these criteria later, but I think all what I mentioned can be applied to Azerbaijan, and probably that's why many experts call us middle power, and I don't mind, frankly speaking.
Another great question, and yes, a lot to take away from that, so thank you so much. Moving on now, we have Dr. Zaid Al Nasewa, who is the Secretary General of the Ministry of Government Communication, Jordan.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس على الفرصة التي أتيحت لنا للمشاركة في النسخة الرابعة من هذا المنتدى العالمي المهم. سأعود بطبيعة الحال لبلدي الأردن يحمل أجمل الانطباعات عن هذا البلد الجميل الذي يتطور.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's great to be in your beautiful country, and I find it a great privilege that relations between our two countries on the highest level. You have great relations with His Majesty King Abdullah II. Mr. President, if Azerbaijan is going to host the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Summit in 2027, moreover, Baku will host the 13th Conference of the Ministers responsible for media. do, what are your thoughts about the efficiency of such gatherings? And I'd like to take your view on a lot of developments around the world right now.
Yes, as you mentioned, our relations with His Majesty the King are brotherly relations, and relations between our countries also are very close. You probably know that just a couple of days ago I hosted the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister of Jordan, who had extensive talks with his colleague. And then we also exchanged views during our meeting about the future development of our relations and also regional security and regional challenges. So I'm sure that relations between Jordan and Azerbaijan will successfully continue in the future, because there is a big already scope of work has been done. You're absolutely right. Next year we will host a summit of Islamic Cooperation Organization. It's a big responsibility for us, especially at these turbulent times. Azerbaijan always was strongly advocating for solidarity between the Muslim countries. And numerous events held in Azerbaijan and numerous initiatives which we put forward actually served the cause of solidarity, mutual understanding, and unity. We will see how things develop prior to the summit, but unfortunately now we don't see much solidarity. On the contrary, we see aggravation of tensions, we see mutual accusations, we see wars in different parts of the world, not only in the Middle East and Gulf. And this is very disappointing because solidarity within Islamic Cooperation Organization, I think, is a main factor for security and stability. If there's more solidarity, more mutual understanding, there'll be less difficult times. The role of Azerbaijan has always been highly appreciated, and we played important role in different times with different actors, and our role has always been a constructive, result-oriented, aimed at the reduction of tensions. We, by the way, demonstrated this capability during the times when we were chairing the non-aligned movement. As you know, members of Islamic Cooperation Organization at the same time are members of non-aligned movement, the movement of 120 countries, fully supported Azerbaijan's chairmanship, and we've been elected by unanimous decision by all the countries. And by the way, even our chairmanship was extended for 1 year, again by unanimous decision. So that was a recognition of our very positive role in bringing closer those who stand far away from each other. The same potential was very helpful when we had to agree on important decisions when we were chairing the COP29. That was even more difficult because there were very contradictory views and opinions and clashes. But again, it happened. So COP29's legacy today is an important factor for all the future COPs and the green agenda. So we will use all our capacity in our possession during the time prior to the summit and at the summit to demonstrate this unity. We will do our best. To what degree we will succeed, it's difficult to say. And what will be the world and our region look like next summer, also difficult to say. But hopefully countries like Jordan, like Azerbaijan, countries, like-minded countries, whose agenda is peace, stability, security, will join the efforts in order to have good results.
Thank you so much. Right, moving on, we go over to my colleague and boss, in fact, Jane Witherspoon, Managing Editor of Middle East, Central Asia and South Caucasus at Euronews. Over to Jane.
Thank you, Laura. Mr. President, always a pleasure to be here in Shusha joining you. Thank you once again for inviting us to be part of this wonderful event. You just spoke earlier about recent visits here to Azerbaijan from Ursula von der Leyen and, of course, Antonio Costa. With regards to gas exports, we see that Azerbaijan now supplies 16 countries, 14 of those are in Europe, and now that you're supplying to both Austria and Germany. Why are those two countries so important? And secondly, how do you see relations with the EU further developing? You said earlier, relationships like this are mutually beneficial.
Thank you very much. Very glad to see you again. And thank you for being with us. Yes, we started to supply Germany and Austria this year. And this is a part of our overall strategy to expand our presence on global and particularly European gas market. European market is a premium market, the market with the best prices. Therefore, we are very interested to expand our capacity. Yes, we supply gas to 16 countries by pipelines, and we are #1 in the world with this geography of supplying by pipeline gas. And more to come. We still are in negotiations with some members of European Union, and in order to start supply and in order to increase the supply. So we have both requests. And in today's energy market situations, gas from a reliable source, from Azerbaijan, predictable source, and alternative source is more important than probably 10 years ago. We have potential to increase the production and export. Just months ago, we inaugurated the production from the new gas field, ACG deep gas, as we call it. And production from existing fields will grow based on the working program and based on the investment portfolio. Plus, a lot is being done on renewables, and renewables are already saving us a lot of gas and will save us even more because by 2032, we plan to have 8 gigawatt from renewable sources, and that will save us several billion cubic meters of gas, which today we use to produce electricity. So all that will be also available to the consumers. So we have these two important factors: gas, its production profile growing, and market. So we need to fix and to upgrade what is in between, particularly the transportation infrastructure. Our gas infrastructure was designed and built based on a scenario which was before 2022 Russian-Ukrainian war. And the capacity of the pipeline was built based on our production profile, the forecast profile, and our strategy with what speed to extract gas from the fields, because it can be extracted in 10 years or in 100 years. And what is more beneficial for us, to prolong the process and to have this curve relatively stable throughout decades, or just to invest and to extract more. But when Russian-Ukrainian war started, the demand for Azerbaijani gas grew tremendously, and we've been approached by European Commission to do maximum what we can in order to increase rapidly the production, and we did it. And by the way, these figures were announced during the visit of Madam President of European Commission, that we increased gas supply to European Union at a level of 65% since 2022, and this will grow. So expansion of the existing transportation infrastructure is necessary, but the stumbling block is European green agenda, and European banks are not eager to finance the projects of fossil fuel. Therefore, it's a question where to borrow funds in order to expand the capacity of the pipeline. And also another question, probably even more important, is the long-term contracts. And that's also what we discussed with Madame Ursula von der Leyen, that we need long-term contracts. Because we, in order to increase dramatically the production, we need to invest largely. And if at a certain point we will be told that, thank you, goodbye, we don't need your gas any longer, then what we're going to do? So these are two important factors. And also diversification, because we started to supply gas to the market which we could not even foresee, which is Syria. And we can expand from Syria towards the neighborhood where there is a big demand. So for us, very important in relations with European partners to have a long-term contracts and also to work jointly on the expansion of the existing gas transportation system. And with respect to relations with the European Commission, I already spoke about that. We're very satisfied. And I think that this frequency of the visits of high representatives and leaders of European Commission, I think is also unprecedented, because since March to July, we had President of European Council, President of European Commission, and Head of European Diplomacy. And all the visits went pretty well, with very good results and very detailed discussions, not only on our bilateral issues, but on global, what's happening on the global agenda. And welcome back, Jane, to Karabakh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, yes, for such a detailed answer there. Again, so, right, we move on now to Mr. Joshua Klein, Chief Investigative Reporter covering US politics and Middle East affairs from Breitbart News. Joshua Klein. Just over here, and hopefully we'll get a microphone over in just a moment.
Hi, President Aliyev. Thank you for being here. President Aliyev, President Trump has repeatedly argued that American strength and diplomacy helped reshape the South Caucasus. From your perspective, what did President Trump do differently from previous U.S. administrations that made peace possible? And where do you see the U.S.-Azerbaijani relationship heading in the years ahead? Thank you.
Yes, there's a big difference from what President Trump was doing and is doing and his predecessors, because unfortunately during the times of occupation, which lasted for almost 30 years, American administrations, along with other co-chairs of then OSCE Minsk Group, were mainly pursuing the policy of freezing the conflict, not liberating Azerbaijani territory based on resolutions of Security Council of United Nations, which they themselves adopted. But their target was to freeze the situation and to use it as a leverage on Azerbaijan and also to a certain degree on Armenia. All of them were working in a very synchronized way, and all the activity of the Minsk group of OSCE was aimed not at resolution of the conflict, but on making the occupation endless. President Trump's approach was quite different. He is a person who loves peace, a person who brings peace to many destinations. As he himself tells, he brought peace to 8 conflicts. And this is his character, this is his vision and his policy. So in our case, his role was very important when Azerbaijan and Armenia were in the final stage of negotiations on a peace agreement. President Trump and his team, they stepped in, and they created such a framework that peace became possible. They totally understood our concerns with respect to peace. They clearly understood the necessity for Zangezur corridor, which will connect Azerbaijan with its Nakhchivan exclave. And they worked very efficiently also in order to persuade Armenia that they need this peace also. And that historic meeting in White House, when Armenian Prime Minister, President Trump, and myself signed joint declaration, and also in the presence of President Trump, ministers of foreign affairs of both countries initialed peace agreement. As I said, President Trump, in my presence, signed a waiver on the restriction and sanctions. And also we signed a document to establish the joint working group to elaborate in 6 months strategic partnership agreement, and exactly in 6 months it was done. In my experience, for the first time, American officials kept their word so strictly. So from August to February, and then Vice President Vance came to Baku and we signed the Strategic Partnership Declaration. So this is amazing. This is unbelievable. This is something which we could only dream about. We always wanted to have good relations with the United States. But because of Armenian lobby and other stereotypes, because of misperception of Azerbaijan and underestimation of Azerbaijan and its capacity, it did not work. And as I said, when President Biden was senator, he was one of the initiators to sanction Azerbaijan. And that was his vision towards the region. The region divided in conflicts and in confrontation, and it's easy always to achieve the goal. But President Trump's absolutely different character, different person. He wants peace, and he sees peace as an opportunity. And now when peace is already done between Azerbaijan and Armenia, a lot of opportunities. Now, TRIP, he gave his name to the corridor which connects Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan exclave. And as far as we got information, practical works on the ground will start hopefully this year. So this will change completely the connectivity map of the region. This will lead to security in the Southern Caucasus. We need that badly. And this will lead to cooperation in the Southern Caucasus in good spirit. So we are very grateful to President Trump, himself personally, his team, Steve Witkoff, Arya Lightstone, the persons whom I particularly want to name because they played a crucial role in, together with the President, in bringing Azerbaijan and Armenia to peace.
Thank you so much for your question. Right, we move on now to the head of public sector and NFP sales at LinkedIn for the EMEA and Latin America regions, Mr. Seamus Clancy, who is with us here today.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President. So I'm Seamus Clancy. I lead the government business for LinkedIn. We've recently centralized our Central Asian operations here in Azerbaijan through our local partner, the HR Institute. I've been working with the Azerbaijan government, ASCON, UBOC, ABB Bank for the last 2 years or so, and I've noticed the inspiration to diversify the economy. So I have a question. In your opinion, what's the number one thing the country needs to focus on from a worker and the people of the country's point of view, and how does a vendor like LinkedIn or a partner like LinkedIn join you on that journey?
Partner like whom, sorry?
LinkedIn.
Well, we have quite a number of issues on our agenda. It's difficult to name it 1, 2, 3, 4. Global agenda is development, sustainable development, of course, reconstruction, restoration of Karabakh, finalization of all our projects which will lead to new transportation routes, and connectivity is one of them. One of the main topics on our agenda is digital transformation and development of AI. And I issued relatively recently a special decree establishing a commission, a joint working group, a council to address these issues. Energy security definitely will continue to dominate the global trends, though we can consider this for the country as a done business, but as I said, demand for our energy resources will grow, including renewables. We have a huge potential of renewables. Only here in Karabakh, we already commissioned 340 megawatt of hydro and 340 of some solar will be done in 1 year, finished. So export of electric energy to European market is one of the main topics on our agenda because, again, European market needs additional resources. We have extra capacity. Of course, regular day-to-day business is a country presentation, so we need to do it without any disruption to demonstrate what has been done, our achievements, our challenges. Probably number one at these circumstances is security and defense capability, because we see that security and threats, they are unfortunately in our region is not something which we read in the books, but we live in these circumstances. So many issues on our agenda. So probably the best way to characterize it, strengthen our capability to defend our national interests and to establish more practical and working relations with as many countries as possible. Thank you.
Great question there on diversification. Thank you to see Ms. Clancy there. Right, we move over now to Ms. Layal Al-Khatir, who is a host from Al Arabiya. I'm hoping is here with us, and we'll make sure we get you a microphone. Do we have Ms. Layal Al-Khatir with us? Yes.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. It's always a pleasure to see you again. I've been here in Baku and in Shusha last year, and I can see the huge improvement that has been done in Shusha. Congratulations, first of all. And you see the unprecedented situation in the Middle East right now. During this tough time, and you are a neighbor with Iran. Do you think a long peace can be achieved with Iran, first of all? And second, what is your future plan to protect your border from this wider escalation that is taking not only the Middle East, it's like the whole world is involved right now in this war between Iran and the United States?
Thank you very much. Very glad to see you again. Thank you for coming. And of course, we are situated just in the center of wars. We have one neighbor which is at war to the north and one neighbor at war to the south, and we're just in between. And of course, it's a great concern to protect our country and to facilitate, if possible, into the finding a peace solution. Yes, we believe that peace is possible, and I think not only us, but also mediators, the countries who are trying to do their best in order to stop this confrontation and bloodshed. Particularly, I would name Pakistan and my great friend, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir. They really did a great job in the mediation between the United States and Iran and achieved a great success. Unfortunately, it did not last long, but I hope that this current eruption of conflict will not last long. So I'm sure that peace is possible. Otherwise, it is very difficult to live when you don't believe in that. I think important will be what will region look like after peace is achieved. And here there are various scenarios and various options, and many countries are pursuing, of course, their strategic views. And as far as Azerbaijan is concerned, we only want peace beyond our borders. Because when you have peace inside and fights around the borders, you never feel safe. We live in peace in Azerbaijan less than for 1 year. We lived at war for 30 years. It was first Karabakh War, then different types of confrontations during the so-called ceasefire period, and then different eruptions, and then second Karabakh War. So we could not imagine life without a war. So only less than 1 year we live in peace, and we see the benefit for development, for investments, for psychology, for the mood of society. It has a very many implications. And of course, we would like to see peace to the south and to the north to be established as soon as possible. But the peace must be just and fair and based on international law and not based on someone's ambitious and agenda. So international law is a universal platform for any peace. And for instance, if we look back to our war with Armenia, we always were on the side of international law. We were defending ourselves. We've been occupied in the 90s beginning and then tried to resolve it peacefully. It did not work. Then we used force to restore our sovereignty. We did it, and we did not go further. We stopped, and this is very important. And I think one of the important moments after the hot period of confrontation is over to stop. And this is not easy. And we understand it. And we lived with this wound in our heart for 30 years. But we stopped when it was necessary to stop. We stopped not to make the war endless. We could have had other options, but the responsibility and wisdom was to stop, because if we did not stop, the war with Armenia would continue. Maybe kind of slow-going process. At some point again, at some point slow, and people will die. And so the same should be done in the Middle East. When the hot period of confrontation is over, the members of Gulf Cooperation Council and Iran should stop. Of course, we will never forget what Armenians did to our people, how they destroyed our cities, how they killed innocent women and children, committed genocide in Khojaly. We will never forget it. But at the same time, we understand that peace is something which is the ultimate objective. So I think there'll be many implications, psychological, emotional, attempts to fight back, to take revenge. My message to our neighbors is to be responsible and to stop as soon as possible. and to try to normalize relations and not to escalate this process to a global conflict. This is a big danger. And I call for responsibility, and I hope that mediation efforts of our friends in Pakistan again will result in cessation of confrontation.
Thank you so much. Great question there. So we move from Europe to the US, to the Middle East, and now we move over to Africa. Mr. Cedric Monzier Ayundu is the Delegate General of the Voice of Congo, who is with us here today and has our next question.
Monsieur le Président, je suis Cédric Aoundou de Voice of Congo en République démocratique.
Cedric Monzier Aoundou, a Congolese journalist. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Azerbaijan and Baku Initiative Group for giving an international platform to peoples and communities whose voices are often marginalized, distorted, or excluded from the global media agenda. France has long presented itself as a champion of democracy, human rights, and freedom of expression. Yet, in its overseas territories and in many regions still affected by its colonial legacy, local communities continue to face serious difficulties in making their realities heard. Their demands for dignity, cultural identity, political rights, and self-determination are often filtered through dominant narratives, while independent voices are pushed to the margins. Moreover, those who try to support these communities and cooperate with initiatives such as Baku Initiative Group are sometimes unfairly labeled as hybrid warriors, simply because they challenge established colonial narratives and bring uncomfortable truths to the international attention. And my question is following. In today's world, control over information can be as powerful as political or economic control. In your view, Mr. President, how can independent media representatives challenge colonial and neo-colonial narratives without simply reacting to them and instead build a stronger, more credible international voice for peoples whose rights, histories, and aspirations have long been misrepresented or silenced? Thank you.
Thank you. You know, when we were adopted to the Council of Europe, I said I was the first head of Azerbaijan delegation and came to Strasbourg. And one of the first things our delegation heard from the leadership is that human rights cannot be an internal issue for any country. So we were good students and we learned that. And now when Baku Initiative Group raises the issue of colonial inequality or colonial rule, they've been accused, and not only they, but even Azerbaijani government is being accused for interfering into internal affairs of France. We are not, because issues of human rights are universal issues, and the Baku Initiative Group is an NGO, maybe the first and the most efficient, which brings this issue to the global agenda. Because for many years, so-called overseas territories of France, which are de facto the colonies, were under suppression. Different illegal things were taking place there, including nuclear tests. How many nuclear tests were held in Polynesia? Maybe 100 or maybe 200 or maybe more. And so many people were affected by that. So many people lost their lives, lost their health. And when Baku Initiative Group raises this issue, unfortunately, is unfairly accused of some kind of hybrid war. This is absolutely unfair. I think the role of independent media is very important. You touched upon a very important issue.
for many years, those very low voices which were heard about the problems in New Caledonia and Polynesia, in many other, in Martin and other, they were suppressed by the consolidated attack task force. They were suppressed, they've been blackmailed. And even I was informed that some of the participants to the international events held by Baku Initiative Group were detained. They were detained, by the way, in Switzerland, and not only in France. Some of them were put to prison. And these people are talking about human rights, are trying to teach the world what is democracy. So, you know, boomerang is a very efficient weapon. You have to take it into account. I mean, those who wanted to attack Azerbaijan underestimated us. But again, this issue is far beyond the activity of Baku Initiative Group. I think important role of media, exactly what you said, once again, thank you for that, is important. So media should find enough courage, I would say, to act against this colonialism. Because it's not about our relations with France. You know, our relations with France, yes, they were to a certain degree damaged by France's position on our sovereignty and the decision made in France, like recognition of so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. Even now they have a so-called embassy of 10,000 kilometers away from you. And people, they don't want you. People want to live their own life. There are much smaller countries, much smaller than New Caledonia or any other, which have statehood, which can have their voice in United Nations, which have their flag. Why should they don't have it? I think it's an important litmus test for countries, their attitude to this issue, and for civil society. And I think that if there are more groups like Baku Initiative Group in different parts of the world, they could create a kind of a coalition of these NGOs. And this coalition can be more vocal in addressing these issues to put an end to this suppression. It's not only New Caledonia, it's a number of, even in Europe. Look at Corsica, it's just in the center of Europe. People want to have their own lives, they want to protect their language, they want their identity to be respected. They don't want to occupy the territory of France, they just want to live on the land of their ancestors with dignity and without any external rule, external domination. You know, one of the reasons why we are very sensitive to these issues, because we lived as a colony. We've been colonized in the 19th century and lived as a colony. And then when Soviet Union was established, we were not independent. We were part of Soviet Union. Republic, yes, but without any right. So we have it in our historical memory, what it is to be colonized and what it is to be free. And if you look at Azerbaijan, for instance, during the times of colonization in 19th century, in 20th century, and today's Azerbaijan, it's day and night. They only took our resources. Billion tons, not barrels, billion tons of oil was extracted from Azerbaijan. And when Soviet Union collapsed, we found ourselves without natural gas and without electricity. And until now, we are cleaning all those polluted areas in the suburbs of Baku, spending billions to clean what those who extracted our wealth did to our nature. And in these 30 plus years, Azerbaijan, as already it was also said, became a middle power. And this is a benefit of independence. When Soviet Union collapsed,
I remember many analysts in Russia were saying, oh, these republics, they will die. They will not be able to live without the center. But what happened? All of them live normal life. Some prosperous, some less, but all of them, none of them died. And this is advantage. So that's why we advocate for this, for independence, for New Caledonia, for Polynesia, for Martinique, for Saint Martin, to be free. And again, it has nothing to do with our relations with France. It is misinterpreted, and sometimes it is used against us. And I hope that my messages will be properly responded also and addressed in Paris, because we are now in the process of normalization. They criticize us, we criticize them. This is normal. It's not a kind of attack, it's a kind of a working relations between two sovereign nations, and each of them stand at the same level, and no one is higher than another, and no one can dictate another what to do. But to express your view, your concern, and to criticize, I think it's absolutely normal. I wish you success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And yes, a great question there on the impact of information control, very fitting with our topic here over the next 2 days. Right, we move on now to Dmytro Gordon, journalist and founder of Media Gordon, Ukraine. Dmytro is with us here in the front row.
Уважаемый господин президент,
Dear Mr. President, firstly, on behalf of millions of Ukrainians, with your permission, I'd like to thank friendly people of Azerbaijan and you personally for compassion, for human sympathy with regard to this horrible tragedy which befell beautiful Ukraine through the fault of Russia. A year ago, exactly, in this very place, I told you, I asked you, what would you say to Ukraine? What piece of advice would you give to us? Never surrender to occupation, and never reconcile with the occupation. Now we see encircling of Crimea. Now we see the whole world sees that one of the richest oil-producing countries standing in long queues for gasoline. We see that front line is actually not changing. It stays unchanged. We see strikes by Ukrainian drones and missiles on huge territory, from Moscow and St. Petersburg to Siberia. What is happening today in the new situation? You would say to Ukraine, and one more question, what would you tell Putin, who I think has no proper ways out of the situation? Thank you very much. Our invitation, thanks for visiting Karabakh. Thanks for your kind words about attitude of Azerbaijani people towards Ukraine and Ukrainians. It is all very sincere. As for the past year and your question and my recommendation, I think neither Ukrainian people nor Ukrainian authorities, they didn't need any advices, but I would reiterate, never reconcile with occupation. And this is what Ukraine is doing. They don't do it. Although there were some difficult situations throughout this year, and we have seen and we know and heard about pressure on the part of some circles upon the ceasefire option. In fact, fixing the occupation regime, but neither Ukrainian people nor leadership, they didn't agree to that. As for the advices to the opposite side, if they ask me, of course I would say them what I think, but now it's not very correct as part of your question to give the advices. But as for my assessment of the situation and the prospects of the hostilities continuation is not very much different from yours. And I think the understanding of the fact that this war should be stopped, the understanding should have come long ago and should be stopped immediately. This is position of Azerbaijan. This is my personal position of a person who was heading and is heading a country which was occupied and which got rid of this very occupation, and the experience is quite a rare experience in history when there is experience of occupation and attempts of coercion, suppression to agree to give away, put it plainly, Karabakh, to give it away. A number of times I said this. This Minsk group headed by USA, France and Russia, they just wanted to take away Karabakh, not just Karabakh, not only the administrative boundaries of the former Karabakh autonomous region, but the whole territory of Lachin, Kelbajar areas, and to hand it over to Armenia. And they wanted us to agree to that. And in exchange for that, we were promised that we would be given back 5 territories located to the east from where we are now. But never ever, neither me or anyone in Azerbaijan would say yes to that. But it was a consolidated position of leading countries, at least given the fact that they are standing members of the Security Council, and to counter this position was quite a difficult thing to do. And when Second Karabakh War began, all of them were demanding to immediately stop it. They were intimidating us, threatening, calling us. Some were doing it very consistently, some less insistent, but everybody wanted us to stop so that things would stay where they were. And at some stage, some were saying us, suggesting, okay, Fizuli, you've liberated Fizuli, stop there. We had to use various diplomatic mechanisms. I was delegating our foreign minister to a number of meetings to Moscow, Washington, Europe. There was a goal not to let Azerbaijan to regain its territorial integrity. But it wasn't accomplished, it wasn't achieved, because will of people can't be broken. One can't defeat people aspiring for independence, for maintaining its identity. One can't enslave to impose certain things. This understanding should come to those who are still for continuing the war. I know position of the President Zelensky. He was telling this in public, and when he visited us in April, we had a detailed discussion of the subject, cessation of hostilities along the contact line, along the front line. I don't know to which extent this proposal is still topical, urgent, but in fact, he didn't call it off in public. So I think in any event, as for the position of Azerbaijan, it hasn't changed. We've always backed up and will keep supporting territorial integrity of Ukraine, its sovereignty and integrity of its borders. Borders of no state can be changed forcibly or without consent of the people of the country. And here, of course, our positions are quite consistent and firm. And to the Ukrainian people, we always try to do our best to help. I don't want to talk too much on the subject. We are not doing it in order to discuss it later on. It comes from the very heart. State level and ordinary people and commercial companies. It is a kind of aspiration of these people to help those in need, whose territorial integrity has been violated, and to do our best to help them. Once again, thanks for coming over.
Thank you so much.
To the
Another
country.
great question there. We move on now to Mr. Roman Gurovich, who is the CEO of Gurovich Communications, a global communications firm. He's also the honorary ambassador for the World Jewish Agency Sokhnut in Azerbaijan.
Утро доброе.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the chance to take part in the in this forum discussions. A very influential forum. Every visit here is something very touching. I'd like to ask a question. Baku lately is turning into the center of international influence, center of constructive diplomacy. It is recognized worldwide. It's not only about economy. When a middle way passes through Azerbaijan, both land and sea, it is developing on. It is policy, politics. When leaders of different countries who can't talk to one another, they turn towards Baku, asking for help in achieving some palpable results. Such countries as USA, Iran, Israel, Turkey, Syria, they recognize the fact that Azerbaijan can help them, can impact in resolving some important issues. What is land of Azerbaijan? What is there in the political culture of Azerbaijan? What is there in the leadership of Azerbaijan? Is something which gives power to the country to become recognized international center to resolve some complicated issues with the countries which don't trust each other, but somehow they trust Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much for appreciation of our role. I believe it can take us long to respond, but there are a few factors. First and foremost, to me, is the trust. And the trust in our sincerity in all the occasions that you have been referring to, and in many other instances. Everyone who reached out to us in seeking our support in normalization efforts, trusted and knew that we do not have any hidden agenda, and that was the case. We always truly wanted to help as far as we can, and this is our code of conduct of our state. And this is absolutely reinstated. If there's an opportunity to help, we have to help. If there's not a chance, no way. There were times when we had no opportunity and capacity. Now we have financial, political, and other forms of capacity. So the trust that the information shared, confidential information, would never leak, and it has never leaked. And if it's leaked, it never leaked from us. And the second is that there was a sincere trust that we would be integral and honest to all of the parties involved. And I mean talking about those who cannot reconcile. And we had these some years ago, and also in the recent times, and it once again it's a pleasure to see. It means that we have built trustworthy relations that enable us to be useful to some countries, to discuss important questions and de-escalate the tension. And this also transforms into a factor of the international politics. And today, the role of Azerbaijan in international affairs is growing, And this role is of positive nature and is constructive, and we'll do our best to facilitate and support whenever it's possible and feasible. And there is one more factor, I believe, which is also critical, something I have earlier talked about, speaking of the non-alignment countries. Many countries in members do not like each other, sometimes are confronting, but they have unanimously elected Azerbaijan. First, when they elected us, so you can tell that, okay, during the first elections we have been campaigning and so on and so forth, but within 3 years we have performed and did whatever we promised and committed. And 3 years later, when there was a challenge in electing a new chair, again, unanimously we were re-elected. And the same is happening on a regional format. When there's a trust for our integrity, that we are absolutely confident in what we say, and that we keep our mouths shut and closed, and we do not leak any information. That's probably the core of relations.
Our next guest, Mr. Alexei Naumov, MA in Political Science and International Relations, who's a leading expert in Russian International Affairs Council. Over to Alexei.
Господин президент,
Mr. President, Mr. President, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Probably this is my 10th visit to my dear Azerbaijan and my second visit to Karabakh. It's truly admiring to see the developments and transformations that are happening just within a couple of years. It's truly inspiring. Thank you very much. My question is, Mr. President, you have said on numerous occasions that the relations between Azerbaijan and Russia are based on mutual support, friendship, and Mr. President Putin has also told that the relations with Azerbaijan are good, and despite the objective challenges, there are reasons to think that we overcame those challenges. So, Mr. President, could you please share your view on the relations of Azerbaijan and Russia today, and what is the role of Russia in the new South Caucasus that is going through its important time? Thank you very much. Let me once again say that we appreciate our relations with Russia, and we have seen the statements from the officials, including President Putin's statement, that the relations between our countries have a positive dynamic. You have talked about the challenges. We are well aware of those challenges, but the most important, this process is behind us, and relations are fully normalized. We have different level of interactions at the government level, at the members of the government, co-chairs of intergovernmental commissions, foreign office, president's offices are talking to each other. So in this regard, seems like things are going pretty well, and we're happy of that. The relations between Russia and Azerbaijan are important for bilateral format and also for a broader geography. They cover traditional areas of cooperation as well as new dimensions that might emerge, including transportation, trade, humanitarian relations. When it comes to the role of Russia in the South Caucasus, it's hard to me to comment as long as this concept shall be developed, if not developed already, shall be developed in Russia. The South Caucasus has changed and change profoundly. We can even speak that, we can even see that the Second Karabakh War was the primary instigator, that many layers that were treated as frozen and solid have been reshaken, and the further events with the full sovereignty of Azerbaijan, restoring full sovereignty of Azerbaijan, as well as with European aspirations of Armenia and all the relevant activities. So in my opinion, all these developments necessitate to rethink the perception and approach, and both analytics and the government officials have to have a new approach. So without interaction, without checking the pulse, it would be very hard, solely because the old methodology for perception, for perceiving the South Caucasus are already outdated, are fully outdated. The region is absolutely different than it was 5 years ago, with new centers, with multi-vectored aspirations. Today they are much more vivid. People who have been analyzing the region probably have sensed these trends and tendencies a long time ago. So for any foreign player to build the relations with the South Caucasus as a whole, it's quite a complicated task. The region is not consolidated, it is not integrated, be it politically or economically or transportation-wise. We're at the inception stage of this integration, and I have been sharing the same messages to my European colleagues. Back the days when we saw a very biased approach vis-à-vis Armenia from the Western community, it was causing a lot of questions. We knew the geography, we knew the economic capacity, and we know our value. And when we sensed that when Armenia was perceived as the key transportation hub of the region, that was posing a lot of questions. The country which is lacking any experience of a transit country, it becomes or presented as a major transportation hub. But there's a question, what are you transiting? What is transiting through your territory? This was one-sided approach, which was caused by the political attempts, to attract and so on. This is something everyone has to give up, and no one has to treat the South Caucasus as a confrontation arena. We have attained that in Azerbaijan. We prevented any attempt to drag us into geopolitical intrigues. We have not permitted any foreign actor to use us against any third country or against anyone else, or to engage us in some intrigues. And the same our neighbors ought to do, not only by words, but in deeds, and everyone willing to have peace and cooperation in this region have to build their relations on a bilateral level with all the countries of South Caucasus. And when the normalization process with Armenia is over, when there will be a direct transportation link between Azerbaijan and Armenia, not like today, like through Zangezur corridor or through other corridors, when politically South Caucasus is ready to create some sort of trilateral format, we will have a different scenario on ground. But while that is lacking at the moment, there is it's important to properly assess economic, military, and demographic capacity of each country. It's important to assess properly every country's potential, to make proper priorities, and not to face frustrations that the bets were wrong. And again, everyone willing to cooperate, they have to be guided by the principle that the region should be a region of peace and cooperation and fully free from geopolitical competition as much as feasible.
Нет, мы его, как говорится, инициировали, скажем так,
initiated the process since the early days, guided by the principle that regional affairs shall be handled by the regional countries. And no one was revisiting this issue, and thank you very much for raising this question. We launched this as a post-conflict development to reach full settlement and full restoration of our sovereignty. I mean, we started back the days when part of Karabakh was still under occupation. So, as the process is developed and as alliances have been reshaping, I mean, between South Caucasus countries and non-South Caucasus countries. And our assessments have been reshaping, and our assessments vis-à-vis the format has changed. So today it is important to have a six-party or at least five-sided, I mean Georgia is not joining, five-sided discussion. It should not turn into yet another Minsk group that will be an umbrella to deal with Armenian and Azerbaijani issues. We have to deal with our regional issues in full. Russia, Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia on equal grounds. And this concept to us is a foundation. If other capitals have the same perception, then five-sided meeting at the level of foreign ministers will be also in great demand.
Another great question this time on relations between Russia and Azerbaijan there. Thank you so much. Right, we now move on to Tamara Chiogzidze, who is from Fortuna Radio Holding. Georgia, over to you.
Hello, yes. My name is Tamara Chiogzidze, Mr. President. Thank you very much for inviting us. This is a wonderful country. It's the second time I'm here. I was about 15 years ago, and I see tremendous progress here, so my compliments to you. So first of all, I would like to ask you the question today about the radio industry. Today, radio, the world's the most trusted and resilient media, is facing new challenges. As car technology continues to evolve, it is creating serious concerns for both radio broadcasters and listeners. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that there are growing numbers of newly imported electric cars that are being sold without FM radio, or with FM radio much harder to find on a car's display. Many broadcasters and regulators across Europe are working on policies and legislation to ensure that FM radio remains available and easily accessible in new electric cars. Would the government of Azerbaijan support cooperation between government, regulators, broadcasters, and automotive industry to ensure that FM radio remains available and easily accessible in all new cars as a matter of public interest and emergency communication? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I fully support that. I did not know, by the way, that in electric cars there is no FM radio. Practically speaking, I listen to the radio only when I am in the car. But in the car I am very often because I travel around the country mainly by car. And every time I go, I listen to the radio. And mainly to the music, just to be very frank. because news for me is enough from other sources. So, and I cannot imagine the car without a radio. With this car, I will not go anywhere. So whatever is necessary for us to join, if there are any initiative, you just let us know, and we will fully support that. And thank you for your kind words about our country. And for a neighbor, I think 15 years is too much. Hope you will come regularly to Azerbaijan, especially now when we have a train. Huh? Thank you.
Very, very good to know. And yeah, brilliant question. Thank you for bringing it back to the media industry, of course, as well. Right, we move on now to Yoshiki Kishida, I hope I got that right, who is the Executive Director for International Affairs, GG Press, who is with us today. Mr. Yoshiki.
Mr. President, thank you for having this opportunity. And I'd like to express appreciation for Azerbaijan's assistance in facilitating the evacuation of Japanese nationals from Iran during military conflict. And Japan also appreciates Azerbaijan's support in supplying crude oil to Japan. And looking ahead, what do you see a potential of further expanding Azerbaijan crude oil to Japan? And besides energy sector, what area do you expect to expand economic cooperation and assistance from Japanese companies in the near future? Thank you.
Yes, supply of crude oil to Japan now, I think, has more importance than before, because with this disruption of the traditional supply routes, oil from Azerbaijan plays more and more important role. With respect to your question about the assistance, actually we are in favor of fruitful cooperation, and I think both countries already have a good history of partnership. Sometimes it was more dynamic, sometimes it was less, but nevertheless we have a good experience in cooperation in different areas. Many Japanese companies worked in Azerbaijan as contractors in a very big industrial sites. I was personally participating in some of the inauguration of the big power plants which were built by Japanese companies as contractors. We don't have much investments from Japan, but probably it would also happen. So I think that we can cooperate in quite a broad range of issues, in energy, in technology, potentially maybe in defense industry, because I know that Japan is developing its defense industry. We do the same, so we can exchange, experience and maybe create some joint manufacturing. So once again, we had good experience in previous years of commercial ties. I would say that now there are less projects between us. Probably the last 5-6 years, we don't see a big diplomatic traffic between us after the Second Karabakh War. But I think the potential is here, and we need just to have more meetings between governmental officials, business circles, company to company, to see what are additional advantages of cooperation.
Thank you so much. There's always hope for the future, of course. There we go. So moving on now, we are delighted to have with us Mr. Liu Shuchen, who is the correspondent at the Baku branch of Xinhua News Agency.
Hello, dear Mr. President. First of all, thank you.
President, thanks very much for the chance to take part in the forum. I have two questions to ask. First one is about the following. Last year, relationships of China and Azerbaijan reached the level of comprehensive strategic partnership. And in current international situation, which areas you find being of priority areas to deepen bilateral cooperation? Second question, what new opportunities for further cooperation between China and Azerbaijan you see in terms of strengthening regional connectivity and development of the middle corridor? Thanks very much. After my state-level visit to the People's Republic of China last year, and signing a declaration about comprehensive strategic partnership, serious activization took place in terms of interaction between our countries, politically speaking, economically, transportation-wise, everything. And we are very happy to see this and attach great importance to this factor. Today, more and more Chinese companies are present in Azerbaijan. Some of them they carry out huge investments, big investments. Some are involved in some infrastructure-related projects. Me, during my state visit, met management of many leading Chinese companies, and I'm happy to say that their activity in Azerbaijan brings the results, generates results, because they're working very efficiently, very fast, and quality is very high. Standards are very high. We started up new chapter of cooperation in the defense area. Azerbaijan has purchased some military type product. Some of it was demonstrated during the parade dedicated to the 5th years since our victory. Some of them are on the way. Others are being discussed. So we're very much interested in cooperating in military technical supplies. As for this medium corridor, number of volume of traffic from to Azerbaijan and across Azerbaijan is growing. I've told already that we're expanding our training port 2 times capacity. We are hoping for new volumes from China and Central Asia. So here we have already some history of relationships and multilateral cooperation with many countries related along this corridor. Also, I'd like to say that in Azerbaijan, we implement many projects to develop solar energy. And regardless of the fact that Chinese company has started investments some time ago, recently, all solar panels are set here in Azerbaijan as part of the contracts with non-Chinese companies. They are of Chinese origin. Any solar panel you're going to see in Azerbaijan, no matter which company was the investor, they are manufactured in China. In no other country with Chinese manufacture, well, no other country can compete with China in terms of price and quality. And it's not a chance that today large-scale investment project is implemented by a Chinese company to build up solar panel, plant in Azerbaijan, which will manufacture certain things for export. One of the latest important events in terms of bilateral cooperation was about joint manufacturing of electrical buses, BYD company. You can see these buses now in the city. electrical ones are of green color, and traditional ones, conventional ones, are of red. The more green buses you have, the better. So there are many projects there, and we're very happy to see how the relationships are developing. Also, we are happy to see that political decisions at the level of the leadership and implementation of projects, it doesn't take very much time, very short time. This is what makes Chinese companies different from some others. With some of them, we have to negotiate for months, sometimes years, and therefore the process of starting up the manufacturing process is delayed. In this case, everything is to the schedule, clear cut. Me and all services related to this process of cooperating with Chinese companies are very satisfied. Thanks very much.
Another brilliant question there. And yes, we have moved from Russia to Georgia to Japan to China, and now we move over to Argentina. So we're delighted to have Cecilia Degel Innocenti, who is the foreign editor of Perfil Argentina.
President, nice to meet you, and thank you for inviting me. This is my first time in Azerbaijan. I came all the way from the South Atlantic, so thank you for your time. Mr. President, Azerbaijan is a strong defender of the principle of territorial integrity after the Karabakh conflict, right? So Argentina also invokes that principle in the Malvinas Island sovereignty dispute with the United Kingdom. So, of course, in line with the UN resolutions calling on both parties to resume negotiations. So I would like to ask you, Mr. President, what message would you send to the Argentine people on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know how sensitive this issue is. And even when I was a student and was working on my diploma paper, the topic was Anglo-Argentinian conflict, because it took place, I think, in 1981, and I was graduating in 1982, so it was 1982, right, and I was graduating in 1982, so it was very fresh, so I wrote about 30 pages of analysis of what happened. I think the good thing is that despite this situation, both countries, I mean UK and Argentina, maintain good relations, except probably the coming days when you will have a clash in semi-final, but it's not the first one. I remember there was before. And I think it's good to address this issue in the spirit of good faith in negotiations, and of course in line with international law norms and the relevant United Nations Security Council or General Assembly resolutions to address the fundamental issues of territorial integrity of any country. As you mentioned, Azerbaijan is a strong defender of this principle. It was definitely driven by the fact that our territorial integrity was violated. But even when we restored our territorial integrity fully and sovereignty, we did not step back from this position. We never approached to this issue from point of view of political preferences or relations with countries. We treat this issue from point of view of justice and international law. And my message is, again, to defend the rights, to defend the sovereignty. The same what the message was last year to our friends in Ukraine. And thank you once again for coming such a long way, and wish your team success in the coming days.
Okay, right, we now move over from Argentina over to Pakistan. We have Adil Shahzaib, who's the head of Pakistan TV, with us here today.
Excellency, thank you very much. As we have a saying now in Pakistan that in Azerbaijan, if someone doesn't smile, you say you are from Pakistan. So you see a big smile on their face. So from bonding to brotherhood, we stood by each other, and we will always, of course, now the people-to-people connection have massively enhanced, and credit goes to you and your team, especially led by His Excellency Hikmat Hajiov. My question is about peace, Your Excellency. You have rightly mentioned that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir have tirelessly worked, and me being a head of the state broadcaster, I witnessed firsthand from the first process, which was in Islamabad, to Bergenstock, which was last week. And trust me, our delegates literally did not sleep for almost 24 hours. So without Pakistan, I don't think that we would have seen this ceasefire. It's like, it has been like a roller coaster journey for us. So the message I would like to take away from Your Excellency to the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and your brother Field Marshal Asim Munir, and also what can be done more for the long-lasting peace, especially in the region. Thank you.
Well, my message is best wishes, and of course to continue these tremendous efforts. I called my dear brother Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and congratulated him with respect to that deal, which was achieved mainly because of the mediation efforts of Pakistan. And once again, it demonstrates great international respect to your country. And it was the only country which managed to mediate and took this responsibility. And we also followed the developments, and we saw that the full devotion to this issue was on behalf of Prime Minister and Field Marshal and their teams. So I'm sure that taking into account the recent developments and new tensions, they will do their utmost once again to facilitate the cessation of the standoff. And I think that no one except Pakistan can do it. And I hope and I'm sure that they will succeed again in helping to bring peace to the Middle East. And this is another indication of the capacity of your country, capability of your leaders, and broad international respect that you gained. Not only because of that, but also in general terms.
Just one more comment, because when we travel abroad as officials, we need no objection certificate to travel. So every time my official now sign NOC for Baku, they ask me one question: are you really going to come back to Islamabad?
Yeah, you are more than welcome. Stay here for as long as is necessary.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, you've very generously given us 2 hours of your time so far. I know time is running out. We do have a couple more questions, if that's okay, your end. So let's move over now to Mr. Jahongir Olimov, who is a correspondent at Sevimli TV channel. I hope I'm saying that right. Sevimli TV channel, there we go.
Also, I saw our veteran, Mr. Usman, who raised a hand. Maybe you can give him also.
Perfect.
Assalamu alaikum, Muhtaram President.
I will try to put my question in Azerbaijani. 4 years ago, I was in Karabakh, and I'm so glad to come again here and to see this reconstruction. Today, Karabakh is the cultural center of Azerbaijan and South Caucasus, and I came here to Shusha, and I am witnessing these great changes, and of course under your leadership. And this is the hard work done by the people of Azerbaijan. And today Karabakh is restoring its historical legacy, and I congratulate you. And my question is that in recent years, the relations between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan have reached to the highest point, and of course this is is giving a big impetus to the dynamic relationship in South Caucasus, and you have joined also to the Consultative Council of the leaders of the Central Asian nations, and of course we have created the Special Experts Council of Azerbaijan and Central Asia. So such rapprochement between these regions, how do you see it, and how do you evaluate the role played by presidents? Thank you. I thank Uzbekistan and Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan. We have the brotherhood relationship, and we have a personal friendship with Shavkat Miramonovich that has helped us to elevate these relations to the highest point. And of course, I would like to know that at first, to help us to restore Karabakh was indeed the President of Uzbekistan. In Fizuli, Mirza Ulugh-Bek Secondary School was created, and Shavkat Miramonovich has been with me to inaugurate that school. And after all, these other brotherly states have helped us: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan. But the first assistance came indeed from Uzbekistan. Each time when I travel to Uzbekistan, I see again and again how close we are, how friendly we are. I think when I see these inscriptions in your language, I understand everything. So our languages are also similar. Even if there is a little difference in pronunciation, we understand each other, and we have the common historical legacy that is uniting us. And of course, the development of Uzbek and Azerbaijan relations is a priority for us. I have also to underline that this brotherhood is not limited only by that school in Fizuli, in Kankandi, the very first industrial facility, the textile factory, has been created thanks to the investments that came from Uzbekistan. And with dear President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, we have visited that factory. We are also implementing many other industrial projects. Azerbaijani and Uzbek investments are being made, and we have created the investment fund. $500 million are put in this fund, and this fund will implement different projects, both in Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. And SOCAR has helped to tap a very important site in Uzbekistan and is investing into that site in Uzbekistan. I think that in recent days they will give us a good message, a news, and because energy security issues and gas supply issues are important for many countries, and I hope that Ust-Yurt site exploration will give a good result in the end. As far as Azerbaijan, the Central Asian collaboration format, Azerbaijan is seen as a a full-fledged member to Consultative Council.
Konak kısmında zirve görüşlerine davet edilmiştim.
And I was also invited to these meetings. And Central Asia and Azerbaijan, we have created a common and integrated council, and we are very glad to see that. And this is a unique event because from geographical point of view, it's quite natural. We are in South Caucasus, but culturally, historically, ethnically, these ties are so strong, and political relations are so multifaceted that Central Asian countries have accepted us to be a member. I think this is a geopolitical and geoeconomic issue. It will give a very big push, and we are becoming a common space for interaction. Azerbaijan and Central Asia connections, transportation and logistic projects. So I think that it will have a particular importance for that. And of course, these far-sighted policy and strategic views of Shavkat Mirziyoyev have played a tremendous role. I use this opportunity also to congratulate our Uzbek friends and brothers on these achievements. I regularly visit Uzbekistan. This year I'm supposed to visit your country again, and each time when I see these tremendous achievements, I am so delighted, and I'm confident that the people of Uzbekistan, under the leadership of President Mirziyoyev, is advancing very firmly, and I extend my welcome also to you. Thank you.
So much. Another brilliant question there. Right, we have Michael Guzman, who is the chairman of the World Information Agencies Union and former deputy head of TASS Agency. Welcome.
Уважаемый господин президент, я обещаю, что мой вопрос не будет таким токсичным, как в прошлом году, чтобы не вызвать...
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I will not ask the same question as last year. You know, I'm joining the fourth forum, and I had a chance to raise questions at every forum. I want to highlight an important issue. In 2024, I came back from the Republican Party Congress. I asked a question about the future president of US. You said who would be the next president, and you absolutely correctly prognosed how the relations would develop. And I remember that response. And last year, you have talked about the key success stories of your foreign policy, openness and integrity. And today, you have reaffirmed this. So, let me report back, Mr. President. In 1986, when I was seconded to work in Moscow, I was told that I will be sent to... Back then I was sent from Azerbaijan. I was sent like to a business trip, but my business trip is over after 39 years. I'm back to my country, and I'm happy to work in my country. And now to my question. A very important question, and specifically today, we have talked about many issues. You have talked about the developments, successful developments with the United States, as well as you have talked about the relations with Russia, that they are going back to the foundation set in 2022. Then you have talked about the relations with China and so on. But no one knows what would happen in the coming years. So what is the top strategic threat to Azerbaijan? Let's look at mid and long term. Yes, there are things that we can easily overcome. What are the strategic threats, potential strategic threats to Azerbaijan's security? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Before moving back to your question, maybe some fellow colleagues are unaware. Mr. Mikhail Guzman is a decent son of Azerbaijan. He was on a business trip to Russia for 40 years, but he never detached himself from Azerbaijan. He has been always with us. He has been sharing our happiness and grief. During the Second Karabakh War, he almost lived here. He shared and made a lot of reports. He reported literally from the front line, and they have shown also his character and his relation to his own people, to his own country, and helped us, helped everyone, helped us in breaking through the informational blockade. Mr. Guzman, he speaks on behalf of people who are victims, so to say, those who suffered last year because of the question he raised at this forum. I guess you were sitting at the same place. You raised the question, and you were, and he was removed from his position, from the organization where he spent several decades, and he was literally leading that organization and has pledged a lot of efforts to make TASS Information Agency and made TASS Information Agency to develop as an international news agency. We had also some other people who were victims and suffered. I don't see some of them. Maybe one of them was even arrested. No, God forbid, God forbid. I hope he's safe and safe. But the person was sacked from his position for his question to President of Azerbaijan, and the second one was announced as a foreign agent for his positive comments about Azerbaijan. So Alexei, be careful. Alexei, you have to be very careful. This is just a small intro. When it comes to the potential risks, on numerous occasions I have spoken about it. Unfortunately, we have no internal risks. All the risks are being shaped outside of our borders. When it comes to the political risks or risks of political nature, they're insignificant and very few. When it comes to ideology, diversions, we do not expect much. There were some, but none of them were successful, all failed. The state and society of Azerbaijan are loyal to the principles enshrined in the constitution. Physical risks are always present, and no one can be easily protected. Given the modern realities, given the modern battlefield operations and methodics, there's not a single country, maybe a few exceptions, there's not a single country that feels absolutely secure. So the major risk for a country that is placed between two countries that are in war and that are fighting in a war that are the war which has hardly predictable results. You know, it's very hard to sit here, and the war itself is a tragedy, and long-term war carries more risks than only the military conflict. You know, post-war rehabilitation and post-war complications are sometimes even more difficult and very hard to predict and very hard to project. So to us, the key risk is some attempts to engage Azerbaijan into some sort of scenarios. There were some attempts in past, but they were of political nature, and we have been able to resist. Today it has more serious and more threatening nature. For that very reason, we are used to protect ourselves, to guard ourselves. We are used to fight with. We fight in a consolidated way as a society. We have to strengthen our security, our borders, we have to counter the threats. This is exactly what we do, and this is what I'm engaged on a daily basis since 2003, and it seems like I will be engaged in this as far as I can. This process is endless. As you suggested earlier, we have talked about some issues last year. Yes, last year there was time to breathe, but unfortunately there's not much time to breathe. Even in 2020, after the victory in Second Karabakh War, we haven't had a chance to take a breath, and there was no time. We didn't have time, and not even an opportunity to celebrate. Sometimes you celebrate more, and something slips out of your attention, and we immediately started preparing ourselves. And also after 2023, when we faced very obvious threats and attempts to sanction, we were trying to defy all of them, and we have trying to. And still we're facing some of those challenges from different angles, from different fronts, so to say. So going back to the mid-level state criterion, one of the important features is to fight many fronts. And I don't want to equalize our conflict with any other conflicts, but in some cases, in some instances, there's a group of countries that support you, and there is a country or a group of countries that are attacking you. In our case, the scenario was absolutely different, and very different. We had to face, be it physically or politically, on many dimensions, and it is still happening. So there will not be an easy life. No one should expect an easy life, including yourself. You are a person who suffered. You need some rehab time. Shusha is a recreational city, so I hope that your time here will be recreational. Stay after the forum, and it's a pleasure to see you safe and sound. As I said to Mr. Ramiz Yusuf, welcome to your homeland. Welcome to your homeland, and great to see you back.
Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, we are sadly running out of time, but I'd love to get a few more questions in, if I may. And we'd like to now hand out to Mr. Adel Seyfullah, who's the chairman of the board at Kaz Content JSC. Welcome.
Ассаламу алейкум, господин президент. Многоуважаемый Ильхам Гейдароглы.
Mr. President, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, thank you very much for such a hospitality and high level of organization of this forum. Today, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan enjoy highest level of bilateral relations and illustrate a very good example how these two countries can form logistic and economic routes, being mid-sized countries and including the middle corridor through the Caspian. That's an important connection between Asia and Europe. So, what's the role you attached to the strategic partnership with Kazakhstan and your personal relations with Mr. President Tokayev? I would like to thank President Tokayev in restoration of Karabakh, the center of arts, children art in Fizuli is named after Kurban Kadzi, and together with Mr. President Tokayev, we launched that arts center, and it's an important contribution of fraternal country in the restoration of liberated areas. And our personal relations with President Tokayev are of critical importance for bilateral relations. Our agenda is very broad. We cooperate as Caspian littoral states, and without active involvement of Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, none of transport projects in the region, in the Caspian region, would fly. At the same time, it's pleased to see how the infrastructure is developing in Kazakhstan, and I have talked about Azerbaijan. I know that port infrastructure in Kazakhstan is also being built. Also, there is a new format of cooperation between Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Georgia, and Turkey, and we discussed tariff policy, digitalization, simplification of procedures, like customs procedures, and there are also a number of other topics. In 2024, in Baku, with the President of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, we inked an agreement on construction of power cable through the Caspian seabed. At the same time, on a bilateral level with Kazakhstan, we are building fiber optic cable that would link Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan and will be extended to a broader geography and will play an important critical role in the digitalization process, in AI application, in database developments. Oil from Kazakhstan in some quantities is being transported through Azerbaijan. So, two countries of this region have enjoyed very close cooperation, and we're happy to see the successful development of Kazakhstan under the leadership of Mr. President. I have had a chance to visit Turkestan, a historic city, and it was truly impressive the way how Kazakhstan is preserving its historical heritage and is cherishing the memory of great ancestors. And I'm very happy of the way our relations develop, and we wish fraternal nation of Kazakhstan lots of success.
Just 2 questions left. We're going to head back over to Africa, and then we're going to bring it back home. So let's head over to Mr. Muhoro Puis-W, who is the director of K254 Media Africa. Welcome.
Your Excellency Ilham Aliyev, allow me first to appreciate the fact that Africa has been participating on Azerbaijani affairs that is inclusive of COP29, Shusha 1st to 4th Shusha Global Media Forum, and as well the just concluded World Urban Forum. So my question goes now to matters African affairs. Africa is a continent with over 54 countries, and none of those countries is a member of the UN Security Council. We don't know who talks of the African security process. The African continent has undergone deficit of peace and security, and that is inclusive of Sudan, the Sahel, the DRC Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Eastern DRC, among others. So what should we expect onwards on peace, cooperation and mediation matters Africa? Thank you.
With respect to the reforms of United Nations Security Council, you know that this issue is being discussed from time to time, but without any visible progress. Azerbaijan has its own position on that, and as the chair of a non-aligned movement, we actually put forward our version of our variant of the reform, because it must be inclusive and representative. So our suggestion was that on a rotation basis, one permanent seat should go to non-aligned movement, and for instance, the current chair of the movement to be a permanent member with veto right. one seat should go to Islamic Cooperation Organization, because Muslim countries are also not represented there, also on rotation basis. And one seat should go to African Union, and the country which is current chair should have a seat. So this will be fair, how to say, balance in the Security Council. We know that some countries are seeking the membership, but there should be a criteria why this or not that country should be, if reform ever happens. And it will be very difficult to find this criteria. Population cannot be a criteria, or economic potential also. Therefore, our suggestion is based first on inclusiveness. It will be a rotation basis, as for instance now majority of Security Council is on rotation basis, but in this case this will have a veto right, because it should happen, otherwise United Nations will continue to lose its potential and continue to be sidelined by other centers of force with respect to resolution of conflicts and with respect to international relations. With respect to other question, of course we all want peace, and peace in Africa also is as important as in any other place. I think that one of the reasons that there are still hotspots is the external interference. If external interference is out, then peace will come very soon. And of course, a lot will depend on responsibility of the main actors who are involved in that. But again, our relations with the members of African Union is growing, by the way. When we were the chair of non-aligned movement, we provided humanitarian support primarily during the time of COVID. 80 countries, big number of them were from Africa, received support from us. So, and thank you for being with us at the forum, and convey our greetings to your friends.
Thank you so much. Great question there. Right, for our final question this morning, and for the session here this morning as well, we're going to bring it back home, and we're going to throw it out to Meshahin Agayev from Real TV, Azerbaijan.
Teşekkür ederim. Mr. President,
Shusha is a cultural capital of Azerbaijan. We're all aware of that. And for the 4 years in a row, it's a media capital of the world, and it's not a coincidence. I would just refer to a couple of occasions. We've restored our territorial integrity. We've restored our sovereignty. The OSCE Minsk group has been abolished. A trilateral statement was signed with the President of Azerbaijan, Prime Minister of Armenia, and the US President. And then Azerbaijan used UN rostrum to deliver the message of peace. So those are some of the milestones. There is also one leader that makes you stand out, and that one is you're probably the only leader, and Azerbaijan is the only country that has ensured absolute victory, and that allows you certain rights, if I may say so. Being the only triumphant nation, being a president of such a nation, presence and participation of the President of Azerbaijan to the world, what would that be? A message to us and to the world. And I hope that that message will be disseminated. Thank you very much, Mirshan. Frankly, it would be beyond modesty to be addressing the world. As you know, I've been known as a modest person, despite the fact that I've been in office for 23 years, and throughout this time, we've all seen Azerbaijan come a long way, and you've been, you're one of the persons who know history of modern Azerbaijan all too well. You've been throughout all the phases of our challenging times. You were there to shed light during the First Karabakh War and during the Second Karabakh War. So you are one of the handful of people who've been very instrumental in delivering our message. But I can only address my own people. On different occasions, I've spoken to my people during the occupation, during the war, after the war, and of course the substance of those messages varied because we were in a different situation back then. During the occupation and my numerous meetings with the former IDPs were I was urging them not to lose hope, for them to be strong and to trust, put their trust in me that they will return to their lands. I've spoken about that, to seize this opportunity to tell, and I saw that the hopes were fading in their eyes, so their optimism was dwindling. And I'm speaking about the period prior to the war. I couldn't tell them in advance what would be the outcome. I would just urge them to trust me, and so they did trust me and waited for long 17 years. And they've been always supportive of me, of my endeavors. During the war, I was speaking to my people. Post-war era was a difficult one, although not as tough as the war itself, but they were the outcomes of the war, and the outcomes were to be recognized by the international community, and some powerful countries, circles, and individuals were rejecting the outcomes. They were doing their best to put us in a sort of position of dependence, to preclude justice and fairness to be upheld. So they were devising plans to prevent that, and we remember that all too well. And as I spoke in my addresses to the people, I used to tell my people not to rush to celebrate the outcome of the war. Let's do our best to be very active, because there's a lot to be done. And a group of former IDPs believed in me, and they stood patiently for their turn to return to their native lands. A day before yesterday, I met a group of them in Galaderesi village and Kuzey Kırman village. I met with the residents there, and I told them that in 2020 these lands were still under occupation, particularly those two villages. But you believed in me that the day would come that you would return, and the time came. So, although the substance of my messages differed, but something that united all of those
Biz
was that
ancak özümüze
we
güvenebiliriz.
can only rely on ourselves. I've already spoken about this.
Azerbaycan'ın çok büyük tabii
Despite
servetleri
that
oldu.
we have vast natural resources,
Uzun illerden beri
for many
onlardan
years,
hiçbiri,
we were deprived of them.
sözün asl manasında Azerbaycan halkının
The
inkişafına,
people of Azerbaijan
o vakit müstakil olmayan resmi
zero benefit because we were not independent, we were part of Soviet Union. Those resources they did not contribute to our development. We were contributing to the
biz verirdik,
state budget. There were only two republics of the
bizden
former
neft
Soviet Union.
aparılırdı.
Our oil was taken from us. The
Felakete
city of Sumgait, which is the second largest city, was the scene of an environmental catastrophe. And as the Soviet Union collapsed, everything was devastated. We lost our land. So we must only rely on ourselves. People should rely on the government, and our unity should be unwavering. The reason I'm saying that is because this unity within the society, you cannot compare it to any other. This unity is genuine. It's something that brings together, because both our hearts and minds work in unison. But we have to be optimistic. We have to look ahead. The world is changing. New threats are emerging. New provocations. So if someone thinks that we will be left alone, that will never happen. This struggle has to be eternal, and we need to do that to protect our rights, to protect our national identity. We have to preserve our independence. We have to be the masters of our fate, of our future. There are many examples that leaders of certain nations choose to operate under the umbrella of a powerful nation, thinking that they will protect them, but at the end they're sacrificed. They become victims of great gains. Our people have seen devastation, hardship, victory, and now restoration and rehabilitation. Therefore, our future generations, our people must always persevere as a dignified nation. Our young generation has to uphold our national identity. You can be defeated at a certain stage. Things happen. But you may always remain strong. You may never reconcile with occupation. You may never leave under the dictate of the invaders. You need to sacrifice yourself. And even if you live in dignity or you die. So our future development will be, of course, related to our young generation. 2-3 decades from now, they have to be committed to their land, determined, so that our country always prevails and be on top.
As you said, it is very much all about the next generation. We cannot thank you enough for lending us your time here. It's been a very good, solid 2.5 hours. I mean, for me, it's gone very, very quickly, but thank you so much for your time. And we really have gone completely around the world here with all the international media as well.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's hear it for the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Ilham Aliyev. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Way News. That was President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, taking questions at the 4th Shusha Global Media Forum. In the studio, we still have Farid Karimli, political analyst in Baku here. Now, it was a 2.5 session at the venue The president spoke about partnership and cooperation, trade and economy, information control, and even geopolitics. For you, how would you summarize that session?
First of all, I'd like to say, with one word, like sincere, because in my point of view, it's one of the first initiatives that I've seen where a head of state would sit down with media for this long and answer so many questions from all over the world. So we saw, just as you said, topics ranging from security, connectivity, energy, peace, as well as all in the frame of how the role that media plays in these discussions and the importance of the media.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on some of the things that he mentioned. First of all, the Azerbaijan-Turkey relationship. How would you put that into perspective for those who are listening?
So when we look at the specific, the question about Azerbaijan and Turkey relations, the president aptly said that it's a relationship that has, that in the world there's no relationship like that. So no other example of this kind of closeness. And it was quite interesting when he said specifically that it's not just the culture, the language, the religious aspect of things that unites the two countries. He made a remark about the fact that there are a lot of other cases where this is actually a point of conflict rather than bringing together countries. So I think specifically when we look at Azerbaijan and Turkey, we should take as example not just the fraternal side of things, but also how the two countries cooperate with each other in terms of connectivity, in terms of defense, security, and promoting peace in the region as well.
Now, further on, he also talked about Azerbaijan's influence or position in the Middle East conflict. Yeah. What was your assessment of that?
So the president said that Azerbaijan is currently surrounded by conflict. So in the north, in the south, but specifically looking at the south, Azerbaijan specifically promotes peace. So it's on the side of actually having peace because it doesn't just have an economic benefit for the world. We see that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has caused a lot of disruptions in logistics and supply chain, but also the quality of life of a lot of people. There are schools in the global south that are being closed down because of lack of oil, lack of energy, electricity. But then what was really important is what he said about the psychological aspect of things. So he said that peace is not just important for development, but also for psychology and the mood of people in itself. So that's kind of like a very important spiritual aspect of things, that we can't really tie peace to just material side of things because we're humans. So we need to have that psychological benefit as well, which is a really important point that I think was made there.
And about the organizations of the Islamist countries as well, he also said something about how the Muslim nations are involved in the conflict. What did you say about that?
Also, what was mentioned was that whereas there is the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, there's a lot of divergence within the cooperation in the organization in itself. So although there is this big organization that brings together these people under the same umbrella of Islam, the issue here is that these countries do have a lot of differences as well, a lot of discrepancies, some even have conflicts, like ongoing conflicts. So he said that this is a very sad situation, that this shouldn't be taking place, and hopefully next year I think Azerbaijan is going to host the conference for Organization for Islamic Cooperation. So hopefully in the future, the president also mentioned kind of like the ideal vision for the UN Security Council as well. And he mentioned that one of the permanent seats and the veto right should be given to an the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. So I think the vision is there. It's just that these countries really need to get together and say, look, let's put aside our differences and work towards peace rather than going towards conflict.
Beyond conflict, he also talked about trade and economy, which obviously boils down to the trade corridors within the country and also in the region. What do you make of that and how it impacts global economy and global trade?
We saw that specifically the president mentioned the middle corridor. So the increased connectivity. So first of all, where it all starts is the peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. We saw that he mentioned that Azerbaijan unilaterally, which is the important point here, unilaterally started an increased trade and is increasing trade with Armenia. So it kind of sets the precedent for the other regional countries to say, look, you know, we're trading, and we see that trade with Kazakhstan is increasing. Azerbaijan is facilitating a lot of these through the middle corridor. He mentioned that during the conflict, we saw that in flight radar, a lot of the flights were taking place over Azerbaijan. So it was kind of like it is still kind of like a safe haven for transit and connectivity and trade as well. But we also see that this is not just, Azerbaijan has shown that it's not just a short-term solution. It can be a long-term partner specifically to the EU, but this requires things like long-term contracts. So it's not just, as these infrastructure projects require a lot of investment, it's not just something that a country would do for a short-term outcome, but Azerbaijan has proved itself as a key strategic partner in the middle corridor.
Now you mentioned about the EU. He spent quite a few long time actually talking about the relationship between Azerbaijan and the EU institutions. Some of them, the European Commission. Obviously, not all of those things he said were actually pleasant, because he mentioned about some disagreements that they are facing. What's your thoughts on that, and how do you think that can actually be moved into a much more positive narrative?
So when we look at specifically the relation with the EU, the president mentioned the past, how it was initially, what Azerbaijan's hope for the EU was. And I think the general idea here was about, does the EU want cooperation or does it want confrontation? Right? And he said that up until now, up until quite recently, the EU had a confrontational attitude. Regardless of the fact, the EU has realized that Azerbaijan and the South Caucasus is a key region as an ally, a potential ally, and a partner in energy, in trade, in connectivity, and stability, because Azerbaijan has proved itself as a peace bringer, right? So in times literally being surrounded by conflict in the north and in the south, we're moving towards peace, right? With Armenia specifically. So Azerbaijan has shown itself as a reliable partner to the EU. As you said, some of the things were not so pleasant, the past and the present, specifically with the European Parliament. It seems, specifically in terms of the format of the European Parliament, due to its conception, it's closer to the population of the EU. And we see that while that usually has a positive aspect, in the case of the European Parliament, it has a really negative aspect, that it can be easily swayed by lobby groups within the EU. And we see that happening with the Armenian lobby. We saw with the whole fiasco with the European Parliament being bribed, some members of it, openly being talked about this. And that has caused strain. So what is the point of the EU? It's cooperation, bringing together. It came out of the ashes of World War II, but now we see that some bodies are actually moving towards confrontation. And this is not a good attitude, but we see that the European Commission still sees Azerbaijan as a good partner, and there is this reset that's going on right now.
All right, Fouad Karimli, thank you very much for sharing your time and insights with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.